Hi everyone, it's Rman here, and today I will tell you two main reasons why Legendary Diamant is mid as an Omni Tank, and one reason why he is mid even as a melee nuke. And after a brief explanation, I will dive straight into a deeper analysis. So for the first reason, Legendary Diamant is not self-sufficient as an Omni Tank, unlike the Legendary Black Knight or even Brave Male Byleth. First of all, he doesn't have Hardy Bearing, and he does not have Breath of Life healing, and lastly, he misses no counter disrupt, which is a must-have skill for any Omni Tank to be remotely just good. If you want an Omni Tank to be good, they must have no counter disrupt. And the Legendary Black Knight has all of that, and he also gives out the reflex support as well. And even though Legendary Black Knight is an armored unit and Legendary Diamant is an infantry unit, the huge gap between the two is just crazy to me. And the second reason why Legendary Diamant is mid as an Omni Tank is because he does not have crazy flat DR on foes' first hit. And just to give an example, Brave Male Byleth has about 10 more flat DR than him on foe's first hit, and his first attack flat DR is about the same as Harmonized Ingrid, who is a melee nuke and should not be tanking anything. So that goes to see that Legendary Diamant is actually kind of not glassy, but it's not as tanky as you would hope on enemies' first attack, and he is only more tanky when enemies have the second brave attack and other follow-up attacks, but even the follow-up attacks are not that tanky. So I would dive straight, I will analyze a bit deeper about on this topic a bit later. And even if you change his role to a melee nuke, Diamant is mid because he cannot reliably get follow-up attacks. He does not have full null follow-up in his kit, and his follow-ups can be stopped by enemies, and he also has a mid speed stat that can't really compete with modern enemies or modern units that have a lot of speed, like 50 something speed. Like for example, Brave Boulder, who is a speed-based range nuke, has about 49 speed at base stats, and she can get up to like 50 something if she has a speed boon, like speed asset, or even just give her more speed. She gets about 50 something speed. And other recent nukes in the game, speed-based nukes in the game, like Brave Male Byleth, also gets about at least 50 speed if he has a speed asset. So when competing with these units, he can't really compete against those units in terms of the speed stat, and he can't really get enough follow-up attacks consistently. And Diamant also has the 20 frozen effect on himself in his B skill, so that just makes him even harder to do follow-up attacks on foes. And if you're still in doubt about Legendary Diamant's performance, then you should keep watching for a more in-depth analysis. And so, first of all, I will do a quick recap on the basic effects of Legendary Diamant. So, Legendary Diamant is an Earth Legendary and an Infantry Axe unit, and he is also a defense-based Omni Tank with mid speed, as I mentioned, and he mainly has an attack boon and a defense boon. So he mainly specializes on attack and defense. And for his true damage, he has great true damage. He has 38 true damage, and that is good. He is doing he will do damage, but he doesn't have, as I said, he does not have consistent follow-up attacks, and he mainly relies on the brave attacks from his weapon. And he has good flat DR, or great flat DR on foe's first attack, and he has really good flat DR on foe's second brave hit. Like when the foes have Erica Ring, for example, Brave Erica have Erica Ring equipped on them, then on the second brave hit because of the Erica Ring, Diamant will have much more flat DR on that attack, and he will most likely survive if he survives the first attack. But he has lower flat DR on the first hit by all foes, and also Diamant has the least flat DR when he is hit by enemy follow-ups. So if any enemy has a follow-up attack on Legendary Diamant, Legendary Diamant has almost does not have enough flat DR on when against enemy follow-up attacks. He only has about 28 flat DR on foes follow-up attacks, and he does not have any percentage DR, no unpierceable DR on foes follow-up attacks, while he has the 40% unpierceable DR on foes first two attacks, like including the brave hits, of course. And as I said, he gets the better flat DR on foes second brave attack if they have a brave attack, and he gets about a maximum of about 41 flat DR plus 40% unpierceable DR on foe's second brave hit. I keep emphasizing this because it's very important. Diamant only gets this crazy flat DR if the foe has a brave attack, and this flat DR only happens when the foe is doing the second hit of their brave attack. So basically, if the foe does not have brave attacks, then Diamant only has 28 flat DR plus 40% unpierceable DR on foe's first attack, and on the follow-up attacks he will only get 28 flat DR. And the good flat DR only comes in when the enemy has brave attacks. So this is a bit complicated to understand, but it's very important in really trying to understand why Legendary Diamant could be tanking foes. And he mainly relies, and as you can see, that he does not have a lot of flat DR on foes follow attacks. So this leads to the conclusion that Legendary Diamant mainly relies on the frozen effects from his kit in order to stop the foes from doing follow-up attacks, so that he can survive those enemy attacks. And he really relies on the frozen effects a bit too heavily, if I might add. And let's continue on his effects. So after explaining his flat DR, I will briefly explain what support he gives. Diamant gives out the Bulwark support and the 10 frozen effects for allies within 2 spaces at start of turn, and he also gives the no debuffs support, which are all support that we have seen before, and they are not OP. They are not crazy OP like Imbue support or Reflex support from the Legendary Black Knight. These are okay support. And Legendary Diamant also has some healing, cooldown charge +1, guard, distant counter, which is a necessity for Omni tanks, and he has Arc Rival, the Arc Rival special, which helps him tank against enemies, tank against blue type enemies, because if he has weapon triangle advantage, he will get the double scout and double pre and pulse. And he also has movement +1, canto, distance +1, max 4 from Brutal Tempest, and he also just gets double pre and pulse if he initiates combat. And most importantly, Diamant has brave attacks if foe has bonus effects, or if his defense is greater than foe's defense, which is easy to achieve. And Legendary Diamant will most likely always have brave attacks, and he has this in his base kit, which is good, and he will do more damage because of his brave attacks. And other exclusive effects that Legendary Diamant has is that he cancels enemy follow-up attacks for himself and foes during combat, and he also has the 20 frozen effect for himself and foes during combat. So And he also has the new A skill, D bonus amp, if you want to fodder him. So basically, after seeing his whole kit, he is okay. He is an okay Omni tank, but he, as I said, he really does not have enough first attack flat DR to tank foes that really do a lot of damage on their first attack. For example, maybe young Camilla, but maybe that's a too extreme of an example. So maybe Emblem Erica, who was an good melee nuke a while ago, and she is still okay as a melee nuke now, but she definitely is not top tier. And Emblem Erica has about 28 true damage, and I've tested Emblem Erica on the the Legendary Diamant special map, the event map on the in Fae, and I've tested that Emblem Erica actually kills Legendary Diamant without much support, and this just goes to see that Legendary Diamant does not have enough first attack flat DR to tank even Emblem Erica, who only has the same amount of true damage as his flat DR. So basically, Emblem Erica's true damage cancels out Legendary Diamant's flat DR on the first attack, and Emblem Erica just easily takes out Legendary Diamant without much support. So that just goes to see that Legendary Diamant's first attack flat DR is just not enough for him to survive enough threats. Because if Legendary Diamant does not tank a pretty if Legendary Diamant does not tank Emblem Erica, who was a melee nuke a while ago, and she is not the top tier melee nukes. I would say Emblem Erica right now is probably tier 2 or tier 1 range, between tier 2 and tier 1 in the melee nuke tier list, and tier 0 being the best tier, being Young Camilla, Hresfelger. Those do just have unlimited true damage, so they are automatically rate tier 0, and they will 100% kill any enemy in the game if they have enough bonuses or if the foe has enough bonus effects. And tier 1 basically are units that do a lot of damage, but they do not have unlimited true damage, like Young Camilla, like for example Brave Byleth. Brave male Byleth is tier 1 melee nuke, is a tier 1 melee nuke, and Emblem Erica is between tier 1 and tier 2, or maybe you can put her in tier 2 if you're I think she's around that range, between tier 1 and tier 2, depending on the situation. And if Legendary Diamant cannot tank a tier 1 to tier 2 nuke, then Legendary Diamant definitely is not tanking any tier 1 melee nukes. Like, he is not going to tank Brave Male Byleth. And this is what I want to say. And Legendary Diamant who cannot tank these recent meta enemies is just not so good. And as I said in the start of the video, that Legendary Diamant is missing a lot of effects that being an Omni tank needs. Like in the modern meta, let me just say that being an Omni tank in general, you need to have no counter disrupt, and because without no counter disrupt, you will not be able to take out enemies that attack you, and they would just attack your back rank in Ether race. For example, if Emblem Sigurd goes in and attacks Legendary Diamant, and somehow Sigurd has maybe preventing enemy counterattacks, then Emblem Sigurd would go to the back rank of your Ether race offense team and take out your other allies. So that is a big problem for Omni tanks. Omni tanks are sitting in the front line, and they need to have no counter disrupt in order to defeat enemies that attack them. And Legendary Diamant does not have no counter disrupt, no NCD in his base kit, and that is a big problem. And so that just really drops his performance down to a level down a lot by modern standards. And as I said, he does not have hardy bearing, and he does not have breath of life healing, and those are extra effects that can be given can be outsourced. But if like he is missing a lot of effects when you compare Legendary Diamant to the Legendary Black Knight, who was the recent legendary hero released. And if you compare between the two, you can notice that Legendary Diamant is completely outclassed by Legendary Black Knight, who is definitely on another level in terms of both omni tanking and in terms of support. Like for example, Legendary Black Knight gives reflex and the imbue support, which is basically breath of life support, and the reflex status is just so OP and meta defining right now. That is so good and will probably stay good for at least maybe a year even. And when you compare the support Legendary Black Knight gives to Legendary Diamant, Legendary Diamant only gives the 10 frozen effect and the bulwark status, which are both pretty mediocre bonus effects if you compare it to reflex and imbue from Legendary Black Knight. And also in terms of omni tanking, Legendary Black Knight has no CD, has breath of life, has hardy bearing, and has everything an omni tank needs, and maybe even a savior, because Legendary Black Knight is a savior, and he has everything that he needs to omni tank. And Legendary Diamant is unfortunately missing all of this in his kit, and he needs to outsource all of those effects in order to be good, in order to omni tank foes effectively. And he really just needs a lot more help in order to perform well. And if you think that comparing Legendary Diamant to Legendary Black Knight is unfair because they are of different moves types, Legendary Black Knight is armored and Legendary Diamant is an infantry unit, then if you think the two are not comparable, then let me give you an example. Compare Legendary Diamant to Brave Male Byleth, who was just released recently in the Brave banner, and if you compare closely, Brave Male Byleth completely outclasses Legendary Diamant in all aspects. And Brave Male Byleth has more flat DR on the first attack. As I said, about 10 more flat DR on foe's first attack, and Brave Male Byleth also gets the no CD from his B skill, and he does not need to outsource NCD, which automatically makes him a much better omni tank than Legendary Diamant, who is not having no CD from his base kit. And if you really want to say that, oh, you should use Legendary Diamant as a melee nuke, then if you compare the melee nuking potential of Brave Male Byleth between Brave Male Byleth and Legendary Diamant, Brave Male Byleth can walk 2 spaces only, and if you only give him his base kit, and Legendary Diamant can walk 3 spaces if you're using their base kits. But Brave Male Byleth has the free range style like Summer Celica, and that automatically gives him much more range than Legendary Diamant, even though he does not have movement +1 in his base kit, and he's already performing better in terms of range in this regard. And not to mention that Brave Male Byleth has about 47 true damage, while Legendary Diamant only gets 38 true damage, and which is a 10 true damage gap between them. So you can see that Brave Male Byleth does more damage than Legendary Diamant, and he also has more range than Legendary Diamant. And if you compare the support effects that Brave Male Byleth gives, you can see that Brave Male Byleth gives the Professor's Guidance support mainly, and the no follow-up support. The no follow-up support being very useful nowadays because not many units have no follow-up in their kit, and especially the Professor's Guidance support. The Professor's Guidance support mainly gives the twin save effect, which helps all units become more tanky because it makes the 40% unpierceable DR in the special in most modern unit specials trigger twice during combat, and Legendary Diamant only gives out the Bulwark support and the 10 Frozen support. So if you compare the bonus effects that the two give out at start of turn, I would say that Brave Male Byleth gives out more useful support than Legendary Diamant gives out, and it really helps all of your allies become more tanky because of the twin save effect from Professor's Guidance. And while Legendary Diamant does not make allies survive more often, they only make their allies maybe suffer less follow-up attacks. But to be honest, the 10 Frozen effect does not really affect the follow-up matchup unless you are a speed-based unit. So I guess you can say that Legendary Diamant also gives some good support because of the 10 Frozen effect, but overall I think that Brave Male Byleth gives out just much more useful support than Legendary Diamant, and I would say, yeah, the no follow-up support is just way better than the 10 Frozen effect and the Bulwark status. So comparing between Brave Male Byleth and Legendary Diamant, we can see that Brave Male Byleth also completely outclasses Legendary Diamant, and the only thing that Legendary Diamant really sort of gives a slight edge over Brave Male Byleth is that Legendary Diamant gets a lot of flat DR on the second hit on foes' brave attacks, but because he takes so much damage from the foe's first attack, then that's even though he has a lot of flat DR on foe's second brave attack, it is still just isn't enough for him to survive. And a lot of times where I've tried the Legendary Diamant map from the recent map of Legendary Diamant, the event map, and I've used different melee nukes to test how tanky Legendary Diamant is, and I've seen that I've learned that Legendary Diamant does not really have enough flat DR on the second brave hit even to survive my melee nukes, and very often that I could see that my melee nukes just do so much damage on their first attack, and that Legendary Diamant just cannot recover from that attack, and Legendary Diamant would just fold on the second brave attack even though he has more flat DR on that attack. And if my melee nukes or range nukes have desperation effect, then Legendary Diamant is automatically dying if I'm using a speed based nuke, and the 30 Frozen effect from Diamant's kit is really actually just not enough, and I could see that my speed based nuke can actually perform the follow attacks without much support, and it's just really baffling to see that most speed based nukes in the game just have so much speed that even the Frozen effect 30 frozen effect from Legendary Diamant's kit is just not enough to stop my nukes from performing their follow-up attacks. And as I said, Legendary Diamant does not have Breath of Life healing from his base kit, and if I use any nukes that has an AoE attack, and Legendary Diamant would almost automatically lose that matchup because he takes so much damage from the AoE attacks, and he also does not have any form of AoE damage reduction in his base kit. So basically, Legendary Diamant faces a lot of problems. And to add, Omni tanks in general in the game are really just in a bad spot, as I've mentioned when I'm talking about Brave Male Byleth. Omni tanks are really bad right now because crazy melee nukes like Young Camilla, Hresvelger that have unlimited true damage in the game exist. So a good Omni tank really just needs to rely on Miracle or Vantage. These are the two statuses that really make a good Omni tank in this meta, and unfortunately Legendary Diamant did not have anything of the sort, and he really does not stand out. And I know I've been talking about how Legendary Diamant could be better, but yeah, Legendary Diamant, although Legendary Diamant has good true damage, his true damage is great, 38 is really good, but he faces a lot of problems when he wants to change into melee nuke. Like as I said, he does not have a good enough speed stat, so very often he may not be able to perform a follow attack, and he only gets his 2 brave attacks, and that often does not take out the most tanky enemies in the game, like the Legendary Black Knight or even Valentine's Dual Rhea in this game, in this modern meta. And Legendary Diamant is unfortunately not that good in the modern meta, and he needs a lot of help in order to really excel as a unit, and that is how I think Legendary Diamant will be in the upcoming future. And for his final score, I will give Legendary Diamant an 8 out of 10 as a melee nuke or an Omni tank. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10 mainly because I think his art is just so good. Legendary Diamant's art is very good, and I would really want to summon him for his art, but I don't really like, other than his art, he isn't really that eye-catching to me. So I would agree with anyone who wants to summon him only for his art, because his art is just so good. I agree that his art is fire, and so in reality I would probably give him only a 7.5 out of 10 as an Omni tank or a melee nuke, but because of his really fire artwork, I would give him an 8 out of 10. And he is basically just a little worse than Brave Male Byleth, who was released in the Brave banner about 1 to 2 weeks before this video. And yeah, I think that Legendary Diamant unfortunately is not an OP unit, and is only a mediocre, maybe good, between good and great. Legendary Diamant is a unit that is between good and great, unfortunately, and this is a sad. Unfortunately, I need to say that Legendary Diamant is just not that good, and Engage fans or other fans that are a fan of Legendary Diamant, I hope that IS really gives Diamant the amount of power that he really deserves. I really think that IS could have made his kit a little better, by maybe giving him full DR piercing and full true damage piercing instead of like stacking more flat DR for his B skill fair fight. But I'll leave that discussion for maybe another day or maybe elsewhere. And that is the end of today's video, and I hope that you found this analysis video helpful and enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and subscribe to see more videos like this. You can also check out my latest Hall of Forms video on the right hand side. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.